want to separate the term artist and illustrator. An artist usually is what we refer to as an artsy type. It just does what they want to do, you know. And luckily, you might make a living doing that, or you might not. You know. I have a degree in fine arts, so I was trained to be artsy. And but I didn't want to do, I didn't want to drip paintings on canvas or sling stuff at canvas. I wanted to paint pictures. And I was in college. I went to Western Kentucky University, which is just a nice state university, and had a pretty decent art department, but they were really on the cutting edge, you know. And at that time, the pop art, op art was very popular in the art world, and everything was. Andy Warhol was doing his thing, and so when I painted a barbarian in the snow, they're like, "What the heck is this crap?" You know, they thought I'd really gone crazy. But I'd seen Frazetta's first Conan covers, and I was tripping out. You know, I mean, you can remember those, but when Frank Frazetta illustrated the Conan series, when I saw that cover, I knew that's the direction I wanted to go. And I'd already been drawn to that direction in art. Didn't even know what fantasy was. But I was telling one of the customers at my table today, when I was young, like I said, I'm from rural Kentucky, small town in Kentucky. And I happened to be, when I was about 12 years old, my dad worked for a big clothing store. And one Christmas, I happened to be there with him, and he had to go upstairs to see the boss, the owner of the store. He was in New York. He lives there. He moved down and started his store. And on the way up the steps, there was a big original painting of a Viking longship. And I'd done something. I guess I was probably more like 10, 12. And from that point on, I started trying to draw longships. And then my dad told me a little bit of history. And I'm like, wow, it sounds like adventure, you know. But I was pulled in a direction, and after a while, I knew it wasn't Vikings, but I didn't know what it was. I had like a desire to draw stuff, something old time, ancient, but I didn't know what it was. And so when I finally got to college, I started looking, I was taking some world history or some American history. I got to one class of world history. But I knew enough about history. I'd go to the library and look through books, and I would look at maps. It's like, who lived in, like from Italy all the way up to England, who lived in this area? I mean, there had to be people living here. They didn't teach you any history about it. It's like the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Romans, and go all up that way. They skipped Europe. Like people built Stonehenge. Somebody did. It didn't grow. I thought, who are those people? And finally, I stumbled across a book on Celts. It's like I found home for some reason. And I don't know. I don't believe a lot of it. I don't know what I believe anymore. There's many weird things happen. But it's like I found home at the Celts. And so I started reading everything I could about it. But this was after I got out of college. Well, I found a book in college. I was about my senior year. Got out of college, got drafted 2 years in the Army. And instead of going to Vietnam, I ended up getting stationed in Germany, and I got to see castles and everything, and I took a lot of pictures and enjoyed all that. And then, but it was the Celts I was drawn to, and that got me into fantasy art, along with Frazetta that I'd seen. And at that time, fantasy art was in its infancy. And then when I got out of the Army, I got a job in Fort Knox, which was about 50 miles from my house, as an illustrator. And so I did drawings of tanks and helicopters and soldiers, and we was redoing all the how to fight manuals from after Vietnam. And so that was fun, but it wasn't real fun. And at night I'd go home and do these big paintings of Celtic things and Viking things and stuff. And one day, after about 6 years of working there, we hired this new guy in. He was a little weird. This is a Fort Knox. This is a civil service. Pretty cut dry. Well, this guy had hair down to his butt. Looked just like Charles Manson. Really strange guy. His name was Vernon. And at noon, this group of high school kids would come around. Vernon was probably about 23. These group of high school kids would come around and get around his desk, and they were doing something weird. And then they'd leave in about an hour. We started calling him Manson with his family. And finally, when I woke up, I said, "What the hell are y'all doing? Every day you do something." They was playing D&D, and it was the early stuff. And he said, "Look at this art." He said, "This art really sucks." He said, "We could do better than this." I said, "Well, they must want that look because that's what they're publishing." He said, "I got a feeling they just, the company's growing fast, they don't know what they're doing, and they're getting anything." Little did he know he was right. They were getting cousins to do, a writer write something. He's like, "Oh, my cousin can draw, get him to do the cover, And so eventually Vernon sent his portfolio in, but he did very cartoon-looking stuff. And I was been doing these paintings. And as an afterthought, right before he sent it out, he said, "You've got some photos of your work." He said, "Let me put it in my letter, and I'll just write a note and say, this also, do some work of this guy, Larry Elmore, and he paints, he likes this kind of stuff." So about 2 or 3 weeks later, the TSR called work and wanted me to do a freelance job for him. Well, I couldn't believe it. I'd been getting published a little bit before then. I'd had a piece in heavy metal, and back when National Lampoon was a cool magazine, I had a few things published in that. And but they wanted me to do a piece for him. Well, Vernon got very mad, and I lost a friend. And so I did a freelance piece, and it wasn't long that the president of the company wanted to fly down to see me. So we sat around my kitchen table, and I just bought a house, and he said, "Well, we really want you to come work for us." I'm like, "Oh." And well, no, before he come down, they flew me up there to look at everything. Everybody were kids. The head of the computer department, which the computers at that time could play Pong, And he was just turning 21. I'm like, "God, everybody's kids up here." I was 32 or something. And it was in 2 or 3 different buildings, but everybody was enthusiastic and sort of crazy. And I'm like, they're lining me up in my job, civil service. I was a GS9. They was lining me up to be a GS11, the head of the whole department. And I had security, retirement, and this looked like a bunch of wild idiots up here playing this game. Eventually, Vernon, the guy that sent the portfolio, and he did talk us into playing one game. It took us like 3 lunch periods to get our characters. This is the stupidest game I've ever seen in my life. So we rolled over our characters up. There was about 8 of us playing. And when we started to play, the first thing we did was start fighting each other. That's what I thought we were supposed to do. I tried to kill a thief right off the bat. "You don't do that. You work together as a team." Well, what are we? We haven't even started yet. He got one of the pictures. Finally, after about a week or 2, we finally got into an adventure. But again, like I said, so I'd seen the place. I come back and I said, "I don't know if I want to work for them." Then they call, the president comes down and says, "We'll buy your house and sell it. Whatever you make it here, we'll more than double it. What does your wife make? We'll double that." "Well, you just put yourself an artist." So off to Wisconsin I went, And but it was working for them at that time was one of the most fun. It was like I'm sure when EverQuest just kicked off and it just broke new ground in this world. I'm sure I've talked to some of the people that worked there. It was just like magic those first few years, and it was a TSR for. I guess I worked through what they call a heyday of TSR, the great days. And there was 4 of us, 4 painters, a black and white guy and a mapper. We all worked in one big room, and we had a blast. The creativity was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Everybody was enthusiastic, young, and we were consumers of our own products. So it was a great time. And we're all learning. All of us artists were still learning. We weren't masters by no means. I'm still learning today. That's what's neat with art or any of the arts. You keep learning till you die, I guess. And but when someone would learn something new, we'd pass it on to others. Like, if you do this color of this or whatever, or you learn a little technique on how to execute grass or something. And so it was a lot of fun, and it was great days. And And I knew that it was something special, wouldn't last forever. And this company started changing, and they from the first time I started working there, they would come around and have a form for you to sign. It was like, I would not work for anyone else but TSR. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. But at first you could do other work, but not for anybody that competes against us. So that made sense. Okay, so well, sure. Well, then after a while, they kept saying, "No, you don't work for anybody." And so I would never sign these forms. I'd take them home and just lay them up someplace, forget them, and they'd say, "Where's your form?" I don't know. It's at home. I'll bring it tomorrow. And you just till finally leave you alone. So I kept freelancing on the side, not for competitors, but for other things, because I thought, especially as the company got more flaky, fighting the management, fighting over who owns the company, who's going to get the most money, and blah, blah, blah. It was a madhouse. So this company's going to go under with this day. It's going to sell. And I want to have a job. I want to freelance is what I want to do. And so I built up a lot of customers. I worked myself, working to basically full schedule at home and full schedule at work. I did that for about 5 years, and or 4 years, something like that. And then it come time to quit, and Keith Parkinson and I quit within a couple of months and started a studio. And worked together there. After about a couple of years, I moved back south to Kentucky, and he moved to Pennsylvania. And we were both doing cover work for books and games and magazines, whatever. And then Keith got this gig. He commented to me. He said, "Look at this great gig, man. I'm doing these covers for this new computer game. It's called EverQuest." I said, "How much you give me a painting?" He told me I like to fell out of my chair. I said, "God, that's great money, dude." And of course, Sony would buy all rights, the original, and everything else. I did own the painting lock, stock, and barrel. But the amount they were paying, like, yeah, I'll do it. So Keith did that a while until he started working for a competitor, and then they eventually got over to me, and I did the last 4 painted covers, oil painted covers for EverQuest, basic EverQuest. I've never got to play the game. I don't play games because they're time consuming, and I have addictive personality. So if I ever started playing, my art career would be over with. So I don't even start. I never did play Magic when it came out. I did a few Magic cards, but it's like everybody was sitting around playing Magic like this. I was obsessed. Like, I'm not going to learn that game. Stay away from it. Because art is a time-consuming occupation. And I'll get some classes once or twice a year for a week. And I ran into some artists like, "Oh, well, what do you they weren't producing like they should." They were young artists. Some were freelancing some. And I say, "Do you play EverQuest or World of Warcraft?" "Yeah." "How many hours a day?" "Oh, like 8 hours." "Well, my wife goes to work, I do it all day." Like, wait, you got to stop that now, or you can't be an artist. It's just impossible. But that's sort of how I got started there. Of course, working for TSR, and I got lucky doing the covers of Dragonlance as well, and it became a bajillion seller. I remember that when I was really clear, certain things that I really remember. We were all in the art department there. We're all painting. We talked about everything while we're painting. The subject coming up is what makes an artist really famous. And Clyde Caldwell said, he's from North Carolina. Him and I were the Southern boys in there. And he said, "I think if you go in the right book series, it'll put you on the map." And I was arguing that it's your art. If your art's good, it'll put you on the map. Well, let's go back and forth. So the art department sort of divided that on who was right in this argument. And at that time, I was painting the first Dragonlance painting. Okay, while we stood in this argument. Clyde was right. The series you work on can put you on the map. And I did like the first 9 covers of Dragonlance, and then we were all working on the calendars at that time. So yeah, it did. It really did miracles for my career. And but you still have to take your art serious. I've seen some artists get to a certain point and they stop. That's where they want to be. Their paintings never grow. And I'll push myself. I try to make every painting, if I have the time, and especially if it's a good painting, I try to make it challenging in some way where I learn something from it. I always try to push. Getting back to what I was starting to say very first, the difference between an artist and an illustrator. An illustrator illustrates. You are doing a cover of a product of some type. It's usually someone else's idea. And at first that didn't bother me at all. That was fun. And it was a challenge. So I would go out, try to do everything there was. I did Thundercats toy boxes and all that other packaging there. I did stuff. Even back for Willow, I did their toy packaging. I've done everything from model car boxes to Princess of Power sticker fun books. I've done about everything you think of because it was a challenge. Just to be, can I get in? Can I do one of theirs? And then after Keith was doing these covers for EverQuest, he got on with another company that's competitors at that time, and so he couldn't do any more EverQuest covers. But then he also got leukemia and died within a year or so after he got leukemia. Keith was more like my little brother, and right before, well, during that time though, before he died, I was doing some of the EverQuest covers, and I went to California to visit him before he died, and actually it was about a week or so before he died, and we talked some on the phone too, and when he died, something clicked on. You know, I'm tired of all-nighters. I'm tired of deadlines controlling your whole life. I've done it for 30-some years or 20-some years, almost 30 years. I thought, I'm going to just, I got to change. I got to do something. I want to enjoy life more. Because he and I used to talk about when we got my age, we would be doing our own thing and enjoying it, you know. But I was 56, I think, when he died. And I just pulled an all-nighter on the deadline. And so I went home and told my wife, I said, I'm going to get out of the publishing. So I want to enjoy my art. I'm not enjoying it anymore. A lot of the covers that I was doing, I didn't like them. It was fun art. I wasn't having any fun with art. And so, but to pay your bills and everything else, you got to have work, a schedule. You got to have backed up work. So I couldn't just start doing my thing and hoping I sell a penny because you had bills, you know. So I thought, okay, I'll take private contract work. So I started doing work for an individual's paid. So I took the deadlines away and the all-nighters away. But it was even worse than publishing. I didn't like that at all. Because a lot of people's ideals kind of sucked, you know. So, and I always got to pay them. Like, this is even less fun. And so finally, I racked my brain for the last few years. How do you get booked up on your own work? I've got to make that transition. And last fall, I was supposed to go to 2 conventions in Germany. I mean, one in Germany, one in Italy. So 2 conventions back to back. Well, the night before I had to leave, I already shipped art, plane ticket, everything ready to go. I was packing my clothes, checked my passport, and it had been expired for about 4 months. So, well, I can't do that. So I thought, well, I'm supposed to be gone for 2 weeks. So I'm going to sit in my studio. Everybody thinks I'm gone. I'm just going to draw and just have some fun. So I came up with ideas for 4 paintings. And I did a complete comprehensive drawing for all 4 of them. And I thought, I'd like to paint these, but when am I ever going to get time to paint it? I'm doing stuff for other people all the time, still a little bit of publishing, a lot of private contract, even behind on the private contract stuff because I didn't like it that much, so I was dragging my feet some, you know. And so I thought, okay, I'll post these 4 drawings on my website and just see if anybody would like me to turn these into paintings. So I put them up there and said, these can be paintings. I told them how big they'll be, how much they'll cost, and if you call me, I'll tell you what colors they'll be. and when in 4 weeks I'd sold 5 or 6 out of the 4 paintings. In other words, out of the 4 drawings. In other words, some people that got one, they commissioned me to do another one, which is whatever I wanted to do. And I'm like, wow, this might work. So as I stand right now, I'm booked up for all next year. So on just my own art, which is like the greatest thing in the world. So at 62, I finally got to where I wanted to be. But it's been but that's not to say I didn't enjoy it all, too. There was times you get burnt out, and you're like, the thrill is gone, you know. The work is turning into, I was painting book covers. I hated them. You said, put a gun to your head so you paint. Like, I got to do this. I hate it. And I thought, this is not what it's supposed to be like. It's supposed to be fun. And you get into ruts sometimes. But then now what's happening is I'm so fired up. I told my wife, I finally got where I want to be. Now you wait, I'll go check the mail and get hit by a tractor trailer or something. That'll be it. You know how fate works, you know. Now I got a couple motorcycles to ride like every time I go out now, this will be the day I'll wipe out. You wait and see. I'll be brain dead or something, you know. Like, I gotta be careful. Because the career is, I always worried when I was younger, you got all this energy and you know, you're going, you can paint 24 hours a day, all nighters. I thought, what am I going to do when I'm in my 60s? Things will be changed. I know things change. And am I going to be just done? And when I started then, I remember telling my wife, the year I went to work for TSR, I said, in this whole art thing, I said, I don't want to be the big star. I said, because this is compared to the movie industry. I said, the stars are sometimes shooting stars, and then they're gone. I said, I want to be a character actor. If you compare art to acting, I said, I want to be a character actor. They might not make the biggest money, but they work right up till they die. And I said, I want to work right up till I die. That's how I want to be. I said, so I'm just going to be a hard worker and try to please my clients and do the best I can. So I can do this forever. And she said, well, whatever. And so, because a lot of stuff I'd say going one ear and out the other. Are you rambling again? Go down the road, I look at the hills, I go, what color do you think those fire trees would be? And she's like, my kids, even after a while, after they were like 3 or 4 or 5, 6, okay, burn umber, a little bit of purple, some white. They'd heard me say it so much, they would start telling me the palette. You know. But anyway, I've been lucky, and luck has got a lot to do with it. But I've worked hard and been lucky, and now at the point of my life I was worried about, it finally came together to do what I've always wanted to do. And that's why I'm scared. You know, fate works. But that gives you a rough here. I've talked too long already. I would like anybody to ask any kind of questions about, you know, you can talk about TSR, the old days, how to break into art, or what I've done here for a request. Anything about the whole field. If you got any questions, now's the time to ask. Because if you don't, I can just keep rambling on.
What size of these paintings do you like to do?
Well, when I worked at TSR, we worked on if we did something like over 19 inches in any direction, that was considered large. And before I went to work there, I was painting quite larger on canvas. And all of a sudden we get there, we work on an illustration board, and we scale down. So it's like, wow, this is so pretty easy. Like the tiny paintings, you know. And then when I quit, I started getting bigger. And this average size I like is about a 20 by 30 is my favorite size. I've tried some really big ones. I realized I want to get all new brushes on these big ones because all these little brushes are painting forever, and you've got 3 feet to go. Some of these EverQuest paintings were like really big, like as big as this table and taller. Okay, and you got 15 characters in it and landscape, and like, oh, I need bigger brushes. These are too small. But then I've done some bigger paintings, but I still like anywhere from a 20 by 30 up to 24 by 36 good size painting. They're nice. I paint on illustration board, yeah. I mean masonite, yeah.
What have you done for EverQuest?
I did, well, after Keith quit, or they couldn't use Keith anymore, I think they contacted 2 artists and tried them out and didn't like what they want, and so they called me. And I did, I don't remember, Prophecy of the Road, Dragons of Norath, 2 more. I did the last 4 painted covers, if I can tell you. Omens of War, yeah. But it's all the I guess what you call basic EverQuest or EverQuest 1 or whatever it's called. And because I never played the game, didn't have time. But they were hard paintings because they would say, okay, first of all, you knew there's going to be a lot of figures in the painting, these triple things, triple folds. So they want to do the landscape first, so you do work on this big landscape, and you go back and forth for a week or so on doing fine-tuning on that. You just draw that. And this is, now I paint all by hand. I paint with oil. So everything I do it the old-fashioned way. That's what I like doing. But I use Photoshop to lay out stuff, and thank God for Photoshop because I'd get the basic drawing, I'd scan it in. Okay, now it comes to the figures. Well, something they want certain buildings, certain places. So, okay, so I draw them. You put them on layers and slide them in there, and you email that to them. Like, okay, now we start on the figures. Okay, they send me like 4 or 5 good guys, 4 or 5 bad guys. Of course, they wanted the girl, Fiona or whatever, the main one. And then you got to arrange all these things. They go, okay, we want this one bigger and this one smaller. Oh, never mind, we want to exchange this bad guy for this bad guy. And so I just keep drawing them on separate pieces of paper. And that way I put them in layers and just keep adjusting them. So there's about a month of that goes on, like a month. And then when they finally done, I remember after all the work, I finally had it done. It took me 4 days to transfer this drawing. I'd blown it up, pieces taped together, to transfer all this down to a big piece of masonite, primered, ready to go. So the next Monday morning, I come in and my secretary was there, and I see the big blank canvas with just a little outline of everything. I said, you know what? I said, if somebody just come in and beat the crap out of me, put me in the hospital, just nothing permanent. So, and I could get out of doing this, I would go for it. Because I know this is going to be so long and hard, and they're wanting it now, just about. I'm like, oh, come on. So it's like a month of painting, and sometimes they jump the deadline up. But, you pull an all-nighters. On the one of, what was the cover? There's got the girl there, and there's a Spider-Man back there, a Wolfman or something. That's in it. Yeah, okay. That one. That would, I'd worked, they'd bumped the deadline, they needed it. So I had to, I was doing something to it. That night, it was the last night, I knew I was going to be working really late. And it was about 2 in the morning, I guess, 1 or 2. And I had to get it dry too, but I had to ship it out FedEx the next day. It's a huge painting. So I'm sitting there and I've got photo lights where I shoot models from, but they put out a lot of heat, just really, they're burning. So I had a photo light up there, all this light area at the top was still sticky, so I had to dry this sucker. So I got the light there about that far away from the basement. And I'm sitting there, TV's on, so I was just burnt out and dead tired. And the light was right beside me, and there's my board tilted up in the painting, and I started smelling something sort of smelling funny. I look up top the painting, I'm like, that looks more yellow than what I don't know yellow, it's all blue up there. So I stood up, I touched the board, you could have fried an egg, I'm like, ah! So I turned the light off, moved it back, I had scorched the whole top of this painting, it was turning yellow now. Holy crap. So I thought, I walked up and like, what am I going to do, what am I going to do? I can't see it that way, it's all turned yellow, all that pretty blue and all these stalactites and stalagmites that came on. Oh my God. So I sit there and think, all I can do is paint them over. So at 2 in the morning, I started painting. And so by about 9 o'clock the next day, I had it done. And I repainted the whole thing. Well, you could see, it wasn't like I had to paint from scratch. You could still see, I just go with new color, but it's still a big job. And so it's so I thought, thank God California is actually, I'm on Central Time. Because Kentucky's split, half of it's Eastern, half of it's Central. I'm on the Central Time. I said, well, I'm two hours ahead of those guys. So I'm trying to cool it down. I had time to get it cool. I don't know if I can ship today or it's still sticky. And I was afraid to try to heat it again because I'd scorched it once. So when I figured they were in their offices, I gave them a call. I said, I told them what happened. Oh, don't worry. I think that was Friday. They said, you can ship it maybe next Monday or Tuesday, something like that. Oh, God, why didn't you let me know that before? So I just went to bed. I was like, but that's happened to me more than once. I know, and heating these painting, oil paintings, I'm trying to get them dry to ship. I know Jeff, you used to put them in front of the oven. You put the oven door down and turn it up. And Jeff easily caught one on fire one time. And I had one to blister too. Wouldn't be on scorch, it blistered. Then I found out the best thing back then when I painted on the illustration board was it was smaller, especially when I was doing stuff for TSR, even after I quit and still doing stuff for TSR. During the summertime, cars' back window can heat up, like the older cars had that back window little place. I know Toyota had a big glass and a pretty little shelf back there. And man, that become the oven for us all. We got to put it back because it'd be 110 in there, And they would drive painting out in an hour or something. Great. It didn't scorch anything. But my car smelled so bad. Sometimes I'm just sort of afraid to carry the kids around because of all the toxins and stuff. But my kids are healthy. They're in their 30s. And none of it warped them too bad, I don't think. Because I figured that I was too far gone. I breathe so much everything. If it's going to kill me, I should have already been dead. But, yeah.
So when you reach kind of blocks or ruts, how do you get through them?
Okay. Like in the painting itself, or as a creative block?
As creative block in general, if you're not
Okay.
really inspired.
Well, usually, what I try to do is, if you can, have a day or two off. I mean, when I was illustrating, doing publishing work all the time, and the kids were in school and college, I couldn't take 3 or 4 days off. I had to work through it, no matter what. And so sometimes you did suck your paintings, they suck. You couldn't help it. You're burnt out, you're tired, you wasn't creative. But now it's like I'll try to take just maybe an afternoon and maybe some the next day. And like I said, I drive motorcycles. I just go riding through the country if it's pretty weather and just ride and try to unwind. And sometimes when it's cold, I get in the car and drive. Just drive. Somehow you get on the interstate and just go someplace and just get your turn and come back. But sometimes I just let you unwind. Sometimes I'll just sit and listen to music. So I used to, back when this music was sort of new, was Lowen McKinnon. I could listen to her work and it seemed like I could just chill out and get creative and get inspired. Sometimes music would do it, just taking a break. My worst situation was when you're doing a book cover. So you read the book, now you got to do the cover. You've got 8 days left to do a cover. So you got to get started on this painting now. And first of all, the book, there was nothing much to illustrate. It wasn't visual at all. So you're like, well, what the hell am I going to paint? I got to have an idea now, And so you sitting there and drawing little sketches and it's all crap. And you're like, oh, and you start to panic. I almost have and somewhere I read one time, and I'd go through this and I'd come up with something. I'd just force myself down, work all night trying to draw stuff. It always no good. And you waste a day, you get more panic stricken, and you finally come up with something and you do it, and usually it was very bad. Then I read someplace that if you, it's talking about creative people and sometimes writer's blocks that sleep on something. So what happens to you, your brain still works with it while you're sleeping. Somehow it's still processing material. And so I'd read a book, and if I finished it, the manuscript, if I finished it at noon, I wouldn't do anything else the rest of that day. I'd do something else. And then I'd sleep on it. And seem like the next day I'd come in fresh, and sure enough, I'd get an idea. And that'd be for that particular thing. But there's been times when I've been in ruts, really bad. And so when I do that, I would just fall back to doing some drawings or paintings, mainly drawings. I didn't have time to do a painting, or at least plan out paintings. That's just what I wanted to do, not for someone else. Because I think you're pushing yourself, especially if you're illustrating for a living. You're always pushing yourself, one painting after another, one idea, you got to come up with another one after another, and you can just hit a wall. And you need to let your mind sort of flatten out a while, just let it flatline for a while, and sort of then reboot. That'd be the best thing to say. It's like you reboot. And usually by doing that, I would start drawings, just start sketching things that I like to sketch. Sometimes it'd be pretty women. I always like drawing a pretty girl. I just start drawing some faces or something. And a little this and that. Pretty soon, like, well, this is a pretty good drawing. I'm feeling better now. This is almost a keeper. And but yeah, it gets hard. Everybody, I guess, has different ways. But getting re-inspired or something.
I think what you did on Facebook, on how to, people are familiar with it, but you should go to Larry's site, he's got a wonderful step-by-step how I do it thing, and on what your drawings are.
Yeah, I had one painting working for a guy, and I just thought, okay, people want to see step by step, so
Good,
I broke it down really step by step.
good.
And I finally got to put the finished picture on last week, I think it was, because the guy I did the paint for, he didn't want me to show the last finished step. Well, why?
Really?
Well, he didn't want to yet, so now the painting's done. He's had it a few months now, so okay. So I stuck the finished picture up there with it last week. But I did this. I started this painting was last fall.
Excellent.
And I'm starting another big one. And I've got 3 contract paintings left to do before I'm starting my own. And the one I'm working on now is, they always start out so simple. You know, the guy on my contract was, he said, I want you to paint it like a couple of warrior type people and a dead dragon, and slain a dragon. It's on the ground dead. So I've never done a dead dragon on the ground, just dead. So okay, I'll do this. Okay, this was going to be like a 20 by 30. Well, now then, so when I start to work on it, I contacted me. Said, well, I would like a knight, just like a fighter, is dead, like the dragon has killed him or something, and a cleric leaning over him or kneel beside him. And then I want an archer and a magic user. So got more people added in, like, and you still want this dead dragon in there? I go, yeah. And so I said, well, the price is gonna go, okay. That didn't help any, you know. So now it's up to 7,000. We finally quit adding stuff, you know. And but I've got this, a dynamic landscape plus a battle going on a far hillside. I've drawn everything but the friggin' battle I haven't drawn. And but the sad thing is it's gonna be pretty cool. Because I kept working on this thing, I thought, this could be a decent painting if we quit adding people, you know. And but I got all these characters now. I drew all those. It's like doing a big EverQuest job, you know. So I got all these characters. So I said, I don't want this to look crowded. I don't want it to look crowded. It's got to have air to breathe. So, but I can't be painting these main figures this tall. They got to be at least 8 inches tall, you know, so I can see what I'm doing. And so on the computer, you just keep expanding and you know, oh, I need a few more. I make this a little bit bigger. The whole painting a little bit bigger. And so I'm placing it for probably 2 weeks. I'm just moving figures around and trying to reposition them and redrawing some and repositioning so I don't want it to look crowded. Because the dead dragon I drew, I really liked it. So I want this to be a good painting if I want to do a big dead dragon. And I thought the hardest thing in this painting is going to be is the dead dragon. That's going to be the hardest thing in the world. I mean, he's got to be dead. He can't be sleeping. He's got to be dead. So I'm doing all these little thumbnails, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I got the perfect dead dragon. I draw about this big, like, oh, so I go and I scan it and I blow it up bigger. And I draw it again bigger so I can see what I'm doing. And like, oh, and one wing stuck up in there, like he's gone down, you know, he's sort of, but he looks really good. This is a great dead dragon. And then they got all these people. I said, well, if you put these people, you're going to cover it up. And so I made it slope the hill. So I got the people scattered over the hill and the dragon on top. And then now it's turned into this. It's 36 or 38 inches long and 30 inches tall. The people are still about 7 inches tall, so that's gonna be a booger painting all these people. But it's gonna be, it might be a pretty doggone good painting. And I think I'm gonna do it step by step. I've got all this stuff, and I think I'm gonna go back and start showing all the little things and do step by step on this. Yeah.
Do you ever tell people that, you know, their idea is maybe like really bad and you
No, I've tried to, you know. I say, I don't think this will be too good. And some people are like, oh, well, okay. But most people are like, but, you know, I really, really want this. It's like the whole contract depends on this. That's why I decided I want to get out of this contract business, you know. And so I've been looking for a way to get booked up, and it happened magic, yeah.
What's been your most favorite and your least favorite paintings of all time that you've done?
My most one of my most favorite paintings is a painting. Okay, it's called Avalon the Life Giver. It was it's a snow scene with a girl healing
Yeah.
a guy with
top.
a giant walking away in the background. And the reason that was successful, like when I would get if you get totally inspired by a piece, and believe me, it gets harder as you get older. You sort of get callous to it all. Is that inspiration gets harder as it goes on. And but sometimes you get fired up in those magical moments. I work myself to death. Let me paint another painting. Let me paint another painting. And I'd usually look at it's a quick snapshot, and it'd be in my brain, my screen in my brain is about, it's about like a 4x5 card or 3x5 card, like this. Yeah, this is about like my little mental screen in my brain. It's like a snapshot. The whole painting would appear, but it's just like 1001, 1002, it's gone. Like a second and a half, it'd be there. I always had something like that. You do it again. But you couldn't remember the detail. You just get that more of a feeling, a quick image. And I'd keep recalling this little thing and it'd come again. Like, oh, I gotta do this. So, but you can't really see detail. It's like a vague, out of focus feeling with the imagery out of focus. I don't know, it's a mixture. That's a page where you're inspired from within. And so on that painting, I'd close my eyes and I try to think of it. If I get a little image, I just start drawing with my eyes closed. And I did a lot that way, trying to do that. Just see my screen, and just try to draw. And on that one, I got a real rough sketch, and so I started drawing. And the colors, I wanted this yellow band of light coming through of the evening sky through these gray clouds. That was one of the main things that was in my mental image. And as I started work on this one, it started coming together. And what happens when you do a painting? And I talk to writers when they write a book, and people that writing songs. Sometimes, especially on a longer project like a book or a piece of art, the artwork itself gets a life of its own and tends to change or lead you. I can start out with an idea for a painting, but by the time it's finished, the painting came to life and started taking its own direction, and you follow it, sometimes for better or for worse. Sometimes you think it's better, but it's actually worse. But with that particular one, and okay, on a normal painting, if you can come out within 70% of what you imagined, that's about average. Okay, got about 70% of that initial flash. You always fall short, it seems like. But on that particular painting, it hit like 95%. I mean, it was like the most complete one that I'd ever envisioned in my life. And that's one of my favorite pieces. Like, that's what was in my mind. And the real strong paintings that I have inspiration for, that's usually how they'll come out. I have 2 paintings right now, I could almost see the whole thing in detail. Because these 2 ideas are probably over 10, 12 years old. And they're going to be really good paintings. And because I've had enough time to think about it. And pull that mental image up to the part it's like it comes up easy now. And I can see it. But again, most of the stuff that I'm totally inspired with is usually built around a mood, a feeling, and a color scheme. It's like it all comes together at once. It's like I don't know, it's like there's a feeling about it. I want to create a mood, an emotion. And usually there's a bit of a color scheme. You just like it's cold or it's warm. You don't see all the colors. Sometimes you see parts of the colors. And then from there you got to work it, hammer it out, and to make it come to life. It's like giving birth to something, I think that's what's neat about creativity. No matter what field of creativity you're in, you're giving birth to something new in this world. You're bringing something new. If it's music or art or a book, you're bringing something. You're giving birth to some new something. Although, as they say, everything's been done, but at least you give it your slant, your interpretation. And that's the only thing I can think of. It's like, I'll just do it my way. Or maybe somebody's thought of this before, but I haven't. This is my first time. And that and I say as I got older, I've been in the fantasy field so long, and because you're in this field, you've seen a lot of fantasy art, and now sit down to come up with a sketch sometimes of something new. And I'm like, oh man, that reminds me of this painting I saw. That reminds me of that painting I saw. You're not fresh like and innocent like you were before. As you get older, I have to say, the more callous you get, the more it gets harder because you've been influenced so much, you've seen so much, and but certain ideals now when I get some, and I've got just the other day, I've sort of been mentally grouping some stuff, and I've had some really new ideals, and then a couple of ideals that it's like, I don't know, it's like writing a book, but you can't close it. You can't get the final scene. Well, I had a painting, so I had the mood, I had about half the painting painted, but there's a blank area in my mind that would, it's the clincher, or it's a thing that will make the painting what it is. But I think as I got older, I couldn't, it comes harder. I was really struggling with it. Well, my brother, I don't see him but maybe a couple times a year. He lives in Tennessee, and he's a very creative person. And he sort of pursued acting and then eventually gave that up. And but anyway, he's very intelligent and very creative. And he was visiting me a couple of weeks ago. We was in my studio just talking. I knew he was going to be there all day. So I stopped painting, we just talked, and I started telling him, I said, I want you to help me on some stuff. I said, I'm stuck on some ideas. And he said, sure. And he's 10 years younger than me. So I figured his mind's a little bit more sharper than mine, a little more flexible. And he's also, since we're brothers, we come in from the same point of view on a lot of things. And so I started describing some of these paintings to details about the mood, the flavor of everything. And I'll give you an idea for one. And I'd had this idea. It's cold. It's wintertime. It's night. But it must be a full moon because you can see pretty well at night. And you're looking at sort of down a little bit of a slope of a hill into some woods. And out of the woods is a woman walking with a very stern walk, like she knows where she's going. And she's probably obviously evil. She's got this long, she's dressed in dark, long, scraggly dark hair, some furs around her. She's carrying a staff. And she's walking, the snow is about between the knee and the ankle deep. And she's coming sort of 3/4 toward you, and up here closer to you on the hill is a small campfire. And she's coming toward a campfire. And I didn't know if there's enough for the campfire to catch a light on her face, but I want a bit of her face lit up somehow, so you can at least see some of her face clearly. I'm telling this to my brother. I said, at the campfire, I said, I don't know. The campfire is a clincher. I said, I don't want just a warrior camping out and this girl, this woman, evil woman, walking out of the woods at him or something like that. I said, I don't want that. I said, I racked my brain, but I want something that binds us together and it will tell a story, because most of my paintings I do for myself almost tell a story. And I said, I can't get the closing scene on this. And he said to me, what if the person at the campfire is not a grown man, not a man? I said, well, what do you mean not a man? He said, what if it's about a 12-year-old boy? I said, well, what do you mean? He said, what if you title this painting The Son's Vendetta? And the sword that he's reaching for, a sword he sees her, and it's his father's sword, it's a big sword. And if you can convey this in the painting, that he's out here to meet her on purpose, waiting to have vengeance on her, and he might lose because she's one handful of woman coming out of those woods, walking through the snow, and he's just a kid, but he's there going to fight. That's it. You solved it for me. And so we went through about 4 or 5 things where I had 90% of it done, and sometimes he would just come up with a title that would work, that would help me mentally finish it off. So it was a very productive day. But some of these paintings I'm trying to get the drawings done now. I'll be posting on my website later for contract painting. But some of them's going to be hard paintings, but they'll be fun and challenging. I think as long as if you're creative, you can do stuff for yourself. The challenge and all that stuff is where you do your best work, and you'll push yourself. Another step, another step. And that's what I've tried to do my whole career, is just keep pushing.
How many pieces do you completed over your career?
I don't know. There's been times I've tried to do inventories. People say, let's do inventory of your work. I'm like, oh, you kidding me? And I don't know. I mean,
Several
there's
times.
been times where I think I just about know where everything's at, and then things will pop up. Like, I forgot about that one. Well, just 2 years ago, I was in the studio and I'm thinking, I guess I know about where most stuff's at, blah, blah, blah. I was thinking, sort of did a little mental inventory. And about a week later, this painting comes, or a big old package comes, and it was from Bain Books. I hadn't done any work for Bain Books for 4 or 5 years. I thought, what is this? So I opened it up, and there was a painting I'd done a cover for him. I totally forgot about it. Like the painting didn't exist, I forgot about this one. Well, then about 6 months later, here comes another one. He'd had 2 of them for 4 or 5 years been sitting there. I'd forgot about that one too. So there's paintings I forgot totally about. But once I saw them, I remember painting. But I couldn't catalog. I don't know. And not counting drawings. But there's been a lot of paintings. There's some I wish I didn't know where they were at.
In the early days of TSR, did you interact with Gary Gygax?
Yeah, that's a neat little story. When I went to work there, like I said, I'd come out of the military and I was working at Fort Knox. And if you work in the civil service or in the military, if you do something wrong, you can be punished. You got a lot to lose. Well, now this was my first civilian job. I was working at TSR. Well, I felt pretty good. The most anybody could do to me is just fire me. That's all. So I was really relaxed. It was fun being away from the military side of things. Well, they treated Gary Gygax like he was God. I mean, I sort of knew the whole thing, and he had a little bodyguard that he just hired, and his bodyguard had just got a pistol. Everybody's talking about he's got a pistol now. I'm like, this is stupid, And they were just over the top, And so when the old Red Dragon D&D box cover, right? They come down, Gary wanted me to paint. Wanted me to do it. He wanted to see some drawings. So I'm drawing these, the whole party fighting a dragon, and I did about 3 or 4 drawings and sent them through channels to get to Gary. Of course, he just right up the hall in his office, but he couldn't go. And come back, just don't like him. So I did a couple more and sent them up there. Don't like him. I'm like, well, why don't he tell me what he wants, okay? I said, I'll go see Gary. You can't go see Gary. You got to get an appointment. Appointment? I mean, this is not IBM or something. Well, IBM wasn't that big then. There's like Ford Motor Company. He's just up the hall. I just went up there like, you're going to approach Gary with that warning or something? So I walked in the office. The little secretary was there. I said, I want to see Gary. I want to talk to him. She said, do you have an appointment? I go, no. And I could see the door to his room, his office was open a crack, and I could see his foot or something there. I'd like to talk to Gary about doing this red box cover. I said, and she said, well, you need an appointment. I said, why do I need a stinking appointment? And by the time Gary stuck his head out the door, he said, do you need to talk about something? I go, yeah. He said, well, come on in. So I went in, and I said, how do you want this damn painting? I said, if you just tell me what you want, I could do your drawing. He said, well, they wouldn't let me talk to you guys. They wouldn't let you. I said, you could. He said, well, they want you all to come with the idea. He said, so we sit there and talk for about 20 minutes, and he said, well, something just jumps out at you. It don't have to be a bunch of people, just one person just jumps out at you. I said, okay, that's all I need to know. So I went back and drew the old Red Dragon jumping right at you, and one guy. And showed him the drawing. I love it. Go with it. And from that point on, we were friends. And I didn't hesitate to go talk to him if I wanted to. And then I got to talk to him a little bit the year he died at Gen Con. Got to see him again. But we stayed pretty good friends. I never did buddy around with him much. I mean, he was a game designer. I was an artist.
Did you at least ever get one game in with him, like being in the game after, or
Now do what now?
did you ever play one game?
No, that's one thing I regret. I probably could have, but I just we started a campaign in our department. They ran for like 3 years or 4 years. Our lunches sometimes would run an hour and a half, 2 hours long. Sometimes we'd be watching, we'd keep playing until we saw somebody important, like, yeah, somebody, split go back to this, we weren't paying, and then we'd meet about once a week and play, or once a month at least, and play all night someplace. And so we ran this campaign until TSR was getting in trouble and they started firing people. I know one day we'd come in and say, well, our cleric is dead. Well, we'd lost a couple on the way. And then it got down to where, and other players would just pick up their sheet and play 2 players. So we got to keep the campaign going. Well, I always played a dwarf fighter. Elrod the Red, that was my character. I played a dwarf fighter. I'm short. I had red hair when I was young, or auburn hair, and that was me as a fighter. And so that one day we started playing at lunch. What was the lunch before? Well, it was the evening before. Our cleric got fired. Because I was cutting back. So we started playing the next day. Said, well, our cleric's gone. And everybody else played, well, I'm playing 2 characters, I'm playing 2 characters, so you give me the cleric. So, okay, you play the cleric. And I went, I've never played a cleric, I don't know how to play one. He said, well, you watch him play, you play a cleric. I said, okay. So we were in the middle of fighting a beholder at that time, right in the middle of it. So it's like, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm going to take I was Elrod the Red, my old magic mace, and what? He did a good one. I said, okay. And what's your cleric going to do? I said, well, he's going to take whatever he's got. What's his weapon? So he's going to hit him too. And so we both charge in. Well, the disintegrating eye of the cleric hit of the beholder, hit the cleric and dissolved him. Okay, disintegrated. And so there we were. Everybody like, what the hell did you do? You killed our cleric. And of all times, we're all about half dead. And I was at like 2 points left or under. I was already maybe the passed out stage, my character. And I dissolved the cleric and disintegrated him. So they didn't. I never played another cleric. And, so the game continued, and TSR stabilized a little bit, and we go on. And Jeff Beasley, he's an artist. He always played this one character called Cragmar from Over the Mountains. He was our wizard. Well, Jeff was a very lazy kind of a guy. The books, on the magic and everything, he'd never read them. And Keith Parkinson was a great DM or dungeon master, a game master. He'd always tell Jeff, he said, Jeff, you better read your spells. You've gone up several levels, and we've learned every level the hard way. I mean, we really experienced them. So we was all about 6th level, and we'd cut there for 2 or 3 years of the hard way. And so at this time, our little party was. There was a hole in this small room with all these like stone golems. Well, we didn't know these stone golems, statues, okay, around. And the thief had found a hole in the floor, a secret hole, and he was down there and he was finding some treasure. Well, I always knew that our thief was stealing from us. And I tried to kill our thief several times. We get marching order, I get behind him and say, what are you going to do, Elrod? I'm going to backstab the thief, give me the dice, And usually I would drop my weapon or whatever. I'd get a bad roll and start a fight and pick it up. I found later he was stealing from us really bad, But so it got to the point where every time he'd find treasure, he'd go down a hole. I'd go in behind him. Kill you, stealing it. And so the thief went in this hole. I went down behind him. Well, all these statues came to life. They were stone golems. And there was 2 or 3 up there left. And like I said, it was a big stone room and sort of small. He's asking everybody, what you going to do? I said, I'm going to kill the thief if I see him stealing something, They get to Jeff Beasley's, what are you going to do? I'm going to put a fireball at him. And he said, Jeff, have you read your spells? Yeah. Yeah. He said, all right, I'm just going to let you do it. Just do what you want to do. He said, yeah, I'm going to fireball. Well, we didn't know. The 6th level fireball is huge, okay? Well, it killed everybody except me and the thief down in the hole. But we come out like just seems naked. That's all we had. Nothing. Everything was gone. And we sort of looked at each other like, well, I can kill you now. You're not worth killing you. It was like game over. I think it's the campaign. It was Jeff had killed us all. Fireball. But it was a fun campaign. It's so weird about role playing, especially with real people around a table. You can read books and you can see movies, and 20 years later, 5 years later, you can't remember the whole book or the whole. How many times you've started reading a book and I read this before? You couldn't remember. Okay, a role playing game played around a table and a campaign, you never forget it. It's like an experience. It's stamped in your brain. But I'm telling you about it happened over 20-some years ago, and I can remember it like it's yesterday. I can sit here and tell you the whole friggin' campaign. That's the difference between role playing with a group of people, and this was like a 3-year campaign, and I remember the whole dang thing. And other things you can experience, you forget them, but you don't forget role playing campaign, especially if it's a good TM. And Keith was a lot of riddles, a lot of things to solve, make you rack your brain. And earned everything the hard way. Well, I don't know if there's a group address or what, but we've gone over it. But I wish there'd been more questions. I hate to sit here and talk about crap the whole time long.
There isn't a group after, so.
There's not a group. No. Well, if anybody has any more little questions that we can answer some about anything, I don't know.
Least favorite painting?
Huh?
Least favorite painting?
Oh, my least favorites. Ooh. Oh, I've got too many of those. I've got 2 or 3 that I'll probably burn up. I'll probably destroy. They were done in no time. About half sick. And I hated doing them to begin with. They come out pretty bad. I've got. Let's say there's 3 or 4. I won't even name their names. That it's the public never sees them. That's fine with me, but. They were published, so the public didn't see them at one time. I hope they will see them again. But there's some at TSR. They would want you to do a painting so fast, and we all painted oils. They come in and say, "We need a painting, a small painting, but we need it by this evening. You want an oil painting in 4 hours? It's noon. Yeah, we gotta have it." And we go, "No, I can't do anything quality. You want to publish it? No." Jeff, they would always turn to Jeff Easley and say, "Oh, come on, Jeff, you'll do it for us." Jeff was a drink or a rock. Well, all right. So rip one out for him. I said, "Jeff, it's just looking bad for you. You're signing your name to it." Well, it got so bad. They come in. I know one time they said, "We need a painting in a day." I'm like, "I'm not going to. We need one. We got to have one. You're the only one who can do it. Everybody else is doing other stuff." And so I did a painting, and I said, "I'm not signing my name to this." I did it in acrylics. Put them all the way to the acrylic painting, got it in the day, and I put Jack Fred. I signed it Jack Fred. And so everybody thought, "Hey, that's cool. If I have to do another one of those, I'm going to sign Jack Fred too." So I know there was at least 4 Jack Fred paintings come out. But the funny part was, the girls in typesetting and pre-press, where my wife even worked there, set all the type all the books, and they would see the image that was going to be the cover. They said, "Who did that?" Because these were done so fast, it didn't look like our normal work. I don't know who did it. They'd always come to the same conclusion. It must be Jeff Easley. So I'd give Jeff Easley credit for these Jack Fred things. They'd piss Jeff off. But I saw one actually this year at the convention. Somebody brought one of those old module covers, and there was a Jack Fred. Was that yours? Yeah, it was. I signed it for him. But I think it was 4 or 5 of them got out before we signed Jack Fred. So that's how fast and how bad some of these pieces were. We didn't want to sign names.
With the group that are all painting together, did you ever collaborate where one painting background, other painting?
No, we never do that. I don't know why. We never really thought about it, I guess. We'd help each other.
Right.
And like Keith was a natural painter. Color came to him naturally, easily. But he couldn't draw with the crap when he first came on board. He'd have really trouble drawing, but if he could get halfway drawing, he could paint like the devil. And with me, drawing came very easy to me. Painting colors came hard, difficult. And there's a lot of times I'd go there drawing my arm on his painting, and he was having a mess, and I'd go wipe the paint off, I'd just get it back down, and I'd draw him an arm or whatever he needed. And then he would paint it. There's times where I'm mixing colors. I had like the 5 crayon box. It's like, I use my 5 colors, now I don't know what to paint. And like, I need a color going between these two or something. I don't know. Keeps it going. And we look at it. He mixed that with some orange and some purple and some blue, white one. Just shit colors. Ugly looking color, sort of grayed out, brownish purple color or something. And you would put it right there on. That works. That's that in between hazy color I needed. There was no name to it, and that's when I really started to understand color. I'd say, how did you know to mix that? You go, well, the intensity and the value and the chroma. He didn't know. It was like a talent. It was like an ability. And I'd say, he don't even know. He's, well, I do, but he could explain it. He could see it somehow. And so I tried to pick his brain about color, and I would help him with drawing. And when we shared a studio together, we talk a lot about the both. And his drawing increased a lot, and my color started really getting better. I started to understand color for the first time. Even in college, they teach you, there's a color wheel, here's blah, 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 blah. They didn't explain to you, you know what the hell they were talking about. When it's all said and done, like, it looks blue to me, And I didn't have a clue. And then when you start really painting and you get into these things where, again, like I was telling my kids in the car about those, you're driving along, those trees back there. This is summertime, 6:30 in the afternoon. Now, out east, there's a lot of humidity, just haze. Those trees a mile or so away on that hill are green. They're the same green as that tree right there we drove past, It's green. They're very green leaves. But these leaves are green, and those leaves are what? They're green, but they're not green. They're a muted, muddied, atmospheric greenish color or something. Now, sometimes they actually look blue. That's the simple, like, we just go green to blue. It's back there. Well, that's not really. Sometimes in nature you really do see the blue, but lots of times you don't. You see this muted color. When I started studying these things and breaking them down, what does it take to make that color? At first I didn't even know, and then I started learning more and more, and I started mixing these colors and looking at them and looking at nature over and over again to study what really is this color. Because I knew early on we were trained symbolically. We're trained with images and drawing. We're trained in symbols from a child up, which is wrong. We're not trained to see what we're seeing. We're trained to break it down into symbols. You have a kid to draw you a chair. It's like an H. It's a symbol. A tree, 2 straight lines fluffy on top. Those are all symbols, and we're trained that way. And you got to untrain yourself. Like when I give classes, the first thing I start talking about is learn how to see. Learn how to see. Wipe away all your symbols. Learn how to actually see what you're looking at. Well, I didn't know this. I understood it in drawing. But in colors, you're also conditioned symbolically in colors. The sky is blue, the grass is green, blah, 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 blah. And I was still doing symbolic colors. And then once I started to really understand it and look at it and just truly understand it, like, oh, whoa, the whole world opened up. It's like, it's not the colors I think it is. And I knew I was doing that when I was painting. One time I planned this big painting out, 30 by 40. I worked all a week or two, the drawings, got all planned out. Started on the sky. It's a blue sky with some fluffy clouds. I couldn't paint the blue sky. This is before I went to work at TSR. I couldn't paint the blue sky. I painted the sky blue. I went too blue, put some white on there, and there's some shadow in the clouds. I just put a little bit of black in there and, killed it. I'm like, I can't believe this. I can't even paint the sky. I could have painted it, and people said, okay, but it wasn't right. And so then I started photographing skies, and looking at them, and photographing. And I got boxes of photographs of skies. And I used to sell most of my paintings as good skies in them. And I carried over from that on into looking at everything, learning how to see color, what it really is. I always tell people, like, this is white. We know this is a white piece of paper. Right now, this is not white, okay? The only time this is going to look white is you take it outside at noon. So it's going to be white. In here, this is a great, I could look at this and tell you there's a lot of color in this white. There's a lot of color to get that white. But our brain knows it's white. We just paint it like, oh, it's white, But it's not. Everything's dropped down in value because none of these lights are pure lights. These are very yellow, very warm light. So everything's under a warm tone. And then when you take that piece of paper, you take it to that corner over there, it's going to change colors. You take it to that corner, it's going to change colors. Any place you put it in here, it's going to change colors, change values. And then once you start to understand that, it's like every color works that way. Everything you see works that way. Oh my God. And but it's also challenging and fun. It gives you a better understanding. It's like I always said, if I know the shape I'm drawing, I can draw it. Okay. It's almost like understanding colors. If you understand, it's more complicated, but how your color works under this light and what other color it takes to knock down this color without changing the complete, without getting a color. In other words, like you introduce black to a color, you get it. The color, when I say get it, it's like it takes the color away, it deadens it, it just kills it. But if you can take a color and maybe add purple to it, it can deaden it, but it's still that color. It changes the value and intensity in the right way. It still remains red or even yellow. And you're working with complements or secondary, complement. Anyway, but using a little bit of color to knock down a color. And without changing that color, you just take it down a value. And you can slowly take that into another color. And I couldn't, a lot of times in school, or you talk to people, they want you to remember a formula. No, I don't want to remember no formula about it. But if you see how it happens in nature and you study enough, then you know what's going on. You understand what's going on. Then you can do it. It's like cooking. It's like some people cook only with a recipe. And some of the great cooks get in there and they're doing it. And I paint that way. I just like, let's try some of this, do that. That don't taste good. Let's try this. That tastes good. So to me, I compare my painting a lot like cooking without a recipe. It's like knowing your ingredients pretty much like the old time cooks. Grandma, she'd get in there, she'd cook something that tastes delicious. You ask her, was the recipe? No, she just cooked it. Wow. And that's sort of how the way I paint. I don't really do a lot of formula work, but it's trying to understand all your spices and herbs, which to me represents colors, and use them the right way to get that right taste. That's what it looks like nature. It looks like the real thing. We can keep talking. I'm going to bore everybody to death. But like it's surprising. I also talked to a what do you call it, eye doctor. I was going to get new contacts one time, and we started talking. I said, I truly believe that some people don't see. I mean, they got good eyes, but they don't see. He said, you're right. I said, really? He said, yeah. I said, no, really. I said, I think people look at things, but they don't realize what they're seeing. He said, yes. He said, I'm on a team that helps people learn to see. These people have 20/20 vision, but they don't see. I said, oh, really? He said, yeah. He said, we get people sent here to us and said, they're boss to them. Said, they can't see. They're making these mistakes at work, stupid stuff. They obviously can't see well. He said, you check on their eyes are 20/20. He said, they don't look good well. They don't see what they're looking at. It doesn't really register. He said, some people you start to teach them how to see, and they're like, oh, it's like an epiphany. There's so much to see that I never saw, I overlooked. And then some people react opposite, like, don't teach me no more. It's too much clutter. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see all this stuff. I want to keep going the way I'm going. And, oh, wow, that's pretty fascinating. I wouldn't think you wouldn't want to see more. But I just realized over the years, it's like, we're trained so much symbolically and so many different things. Do we ever stop and see real color? Do we ever stop and see real shapes? Do we ever really see what we're looking at? And surprisingly, a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't. And that's what it takes in art, especially what I call myself representational art. If you want to paint things that people can relate to visually, then you need to know. You need to know what you're painting. You need to know shapes. And also, in one of my classes, they said, well, what if this one girl said, on this rainy day, I get my sketchbook and I got my favorite tea and my favorite music on, I want to draw something. So, okay, she said, but my mind's blank. I just can't think of anything to draw. I don't know what to do. I said, well, would you like to draw a nice tree? She said, yeah. I said, you could start drawing something. She said, well, yeah, I guess. I said, when I'm in that situation, I draw, I said, I've got like a little library of images in my brain. It's a really pretty good library because I only got like 12 gigs of memory, right? And 11 and a half is used up for visual stuff. And I got like a half gig for the rest of for anything else in my life. And so it uses a lot of space, all those images. But I said, I've got libraries in my brain, a library of images. So if I want to draw a tree, I run back to my little library. I said, my library is old time. It's not high tech. So I pull out the little drawer. It says tree. So I look like it goes my little images of trees. Like what do I want? Like an oak kind of a tree or an evergreen, and I said because I've got images stamped in my mind where I've sat and looked at them and memorized shapes. I said I've done this since I was a kid. So like okay, I want an oak kind of a tree. So I've studied the bark patterns. I know what the bark patterns. I know what some of the patterns of the limbs look like. So I'm sitting on blank paper, so I start drawing an oak tree. And I'm like, okay, I want to draw a big rock in front of it. Okay, I run to my little rock pile. What rocks is it? Like a big granite rock or a sand rock? Is it a soft type of rock? What color is it? I mean, I've studied rocks. Is there moss? I've studied the moss patterns that grows on rocks. I've sat and looked at them from a kid even and put it to memory. So I've got this whole library of images in my mind. And well, I was telling this one girl, she goes, I said, what? She goes, I don't even have a library card. Well, you better start building your little library now. I said, go outside. I said, it helps taking pictures. Look at something and study. Take a picture and look at it again. And I said, I have spent my whole life remembering things visually. And I said, looking at patterns. I said, trees. If you're drawing a tree, I've done a demonstration where you're drawing a tree, even doing it with ink, pen and ink. I said, the way the leaves are grouped on trees, learn to see the patterns, the real patterns. There's patterns, there's patterns in randomness. What looks like random is still patterns in it, okay? Water flowing, there's patterns, even though it's totally random, but there's these recurring patterns all the time. That's what you're looking for. You can learn to see them. You see patterns in everything in nature. Of course, man, all he does when he makes something, it's all repetition patterns. So square, everything is repetition. And I said, what you've got to learn is to see the patterns, but don't be repetitious, obviously, on anything. Because like when I do a painting, I got to watch. I do threes. If I do a cloud, it's got 3 clumps to it. Let's make it 4. If I do some trees, I got 3 main trees. If I do some rocks, I always do 3 rocks. God, everything's what's wrong with me. I got to be like 2 or 4, okay? Just don't do another set of 3, because humans tend to be repetitious naturally. And I said, and most of the time, you like groups of 3s. And but I said, nature, there's repetition, but it's a lot more random, but you can still see the patterns. And I started talking about the leaves on a full-blown tree, full leaved out. I said, look at the pattern. And I said, if you go back to understand the tree, what kind of tree it is, how the limbs grow, and how they branch out and the leaves on into that, there's a logic behind it. But if you look at it and you look at enough of them, you can start seeing the patterns. And I said, and that's what you've got to put to memory, those patterns. And when clothes fold, or drapery folds, it folds the same basic patterns, repetitious folds. Even though they look random, but it's always cloth does certain things. That's what it does. And if you stay those long enough, you can start to fake out clothing and drapery pretty easy. Well, it depends on how detailed you want, but the more you study it, the more you can do it. You can learn to do it from memory. And so if you've got a good library and you can, I must have thought I would end up going to jail when I was a kid. I wasn't a kid, but I was thought, if I ever end up in jail for the rest of my life, as long as I have pencil and paper, I can escape through my imagination. So I remembered everything I'd see. I tried to, in case I get locked up, accused of doing something wrong. I think I saw too many movies or something. As long as I got pencil and paper, I can escape mentally because I can remember everything I see. And because of me doing that, really helped in my fantasy career. I mean, you sit there in the dead of winter and you got to paint a summer scene, and back then there wasn't a computer to go look up anything. If you didn't have a reference book on it or something, you just had to. And I would just go back into my memory because I grew up most of the time in the woods, playing in the woods, just memory. And so all that helps. So every little bit helps.
I guess we better leave that.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.